I was crying, I was sobbing, I was screaming. I was going to pull the trigger, finger on the trigger. And then something just clicked. And that was the beginning of it all. What happened was I had this vision of my wife being loved from another man, my son calling somebody else dad, and it was enough pain for me to just like pull that gun out of my mouth, right? And then I started, I don't know, this is definitely a work of God. It absolutely is. But he let me see that it was my fault that I was there with the gun in my mouth, that it was my fault. It was the first time I ever took responsibility for anything, was that moment. I realized that my past action had led me to this point in my life. And that empowered me to see that my actions from now moving forward can also change the outcome of my life. I could be that dad. I could be that husband. And from that moment on, I decided I'm gonna do this.
We believe that you are strong by design, and you were made in God's image to have a strong body, mind, and spirit. You're listening to the #1 Strength and Health Authority podcast in the world. So let's get ready to unlock your potential and transform your life in today's episode. Hi there, and welcome to another episode here on the Strong by Design podcast. Welcome, listeners, to another edition here early in 2022, and getting to a topic actually I've been looking to address on the podcast for a while now. We really haven't taken a deep dive into this area, which can be a very difficult conversation for people, and frankly, a lot of people aren't willing to kind of go there and talk about this part of their life. But I know going through COVID for the last couple of years that there's been a lot of dark days and depression and anxiety and stress and suicidal thoughts and addictions of many kinds. And so our guest today is somebody that firsthand dealt with a lot of this and has obviously climbed to the mountain top after being in the valley, so to speak. And so excited to get to know Eric a little bit better and share his story with you today. But first, before I introduce our guest, Eric Rogers, want to say thank you so much for finding our show, for listening, if you're a return listener. But if you're new to the show, we're so encouraged by you. Thank you so much for finding us. Here on Strong by Design, we kind of talk about anything, honestly, anything in life that relates to the mind, to the body, to the spirit, your physical health, your mental health, your spiritual health, which kind of covers a little bit of every area of your life, which really opens us up to having all kinds of amazing guests and get to share their stories of growth and of change and transformation. And so just delighted to have another conversation that can benefit you listening on the other end. And maybe this is the one conversation you really need to hear today that can move the needle in your life and get you to start taking action. And so we thank you so much. At the end of this conversation too, but if I forget to say it, and I probably won't, but be sure to share this episode with somebody who could benefit from this message. Sharing a podcast, which I do often with friends and family, something that I hear that really resonates, that's powerful, that maybe brings some emotion out of me. I'm an avid podcast listener. I'm always blowing up people's phones and sharing podcasts because it feels good. It's like reading a really good book, and you're so excited about it that you just want other people to know about it. Same thing goes with podcasting in a lot of ways. So definitely share this conversation with somebody who could benefit from it, and hit that 5 stars. Leave us a review on any platform that you're listening. We greatly appreciate it. And so our guest today, Mr. Eric Rogers, owner and founder of Rogers Fitness Academy. Eric's a bodybuilder with an amazing physique. But, it goes more than that. He's a leader. He's an influencer. He's an entrepreneur. He's helping people. He's coaching people now overcome some challenges and difficulties in their life, and kind of bringing structure back into their life so that they can really take those steps forward and be the people that they really dream of becoming. And so Eric himself is a survivor. He's overcome massive adversity in his life. That's what I really want to dive into today, how he's gone from kind of rock bottom to running a business and to helping other people get out of the ruts of their life. So, Eric, welcome to the Strong by Design podcast.
Well, thank you, brother. I appreciate you. It's an honor to be here. I've listened to your podcast many times, and I'm a big fan, so I appreciate this.
Awesome. Yeah. And we have obviously mutual friends, our good buddy Frank Rich, whose episode just released, who's been on our podcast actually like 3 times, and you were just a guest on his. So, what's cool in the world of podcasting is it's a small world, right? People who like to share their stories because we know our story will help someone else. And for us, the podcast is a ministry. Our podcast is not monetized. It's really just a way to give back to all of our amazing fans and followers over the last couple decades. And we know that podcasting is just such a powerful way to reach people. And these conversations are, I say all the time, are conversations I would want to have ordinarily, just a one-on-one. So I get to do that. But in doing it, I also get to give it out to the world and help somebody that I'll never meet in another country. So somebody in Australia is touched by this story, or in England, or Canada, right, or Africa, or it's amazing when you look at your downloads, right? They come from all over the world, and it's so fascinating and cool, and so I take great pride in that. So, if you would, Eric, please, because I'm curious myself, tell me and our listeners a little bit more about who you were if you go back a few years, and start to share some of this story, this personal struggle that you had.
All right. Well, there's a lot of it, right? I went to the school of hard knocks. I learned the hard way, the hardest way possible. And I'd say the reason why I had to learn the hard way and I didn't listen to anybody was because of what happened to me as a young child. At the age of 7, I was sexually molested by my Sunday school teacher, and you can just imagine what that would do to a 7-year-old. It changed me, and it struck me at a young age, and it completely changed the course of my life. I actually I've talked about this just starting this year. It's something that I repressed. It's something that I kept hidden and didn't even tell my own parents, my wife, anybody about until recently. And I'm starting to be more vulnerable about it because I've overcome the trauma of it, and I've really, come to recognize that it's a huge part of why I am who I am now. So 7 years old, that's basically where it all starts and where I remember, right? I don't really remember anything before that. Probably for the traumatic reasons, but it was Sunday school, so it's a place I had to go back to every week, every Sunday. And at 7 years old, I actually planted bleach in her coffee cup the week after, the next Sunday, because I figured that I can take care of this. Like, I was upset, I was frustrated, I was scared, so I bleached her coffee. And I don't know really where I got that from. I know something my mom used to say is, and I could laugh about this now, right? Something that my mom used to say is it only takes a cap full of bleach. I think she was pertaining to the laundry, but I took that in a different way, and I poured it in her coffee. And she got extremely sick. And because of that, I was like, oh crap, I can't tell anyone now, right? Because I didn't want to get in trouble for doing what I did. And so I had repressed that memory all the way up until recently. And like I said, it changed the course of my life. It changed my behaviors. I became an extremely angry, troubled, challenged child. And then I was raised in a household. My parents did the best they could with what they knew of me. They really didn't understand what was going on with me. I know that it was a struggle for them to raise me. I know that for a fact. But they possibly thought something was wrong with me. I never told them what it was. And so there was a lot of turmoil in my household. My parents were good people. They are good people. I love them. They love me. We have a good relationship. Although because of the turmoil it caused, there was a lot of separation in my family. I was normally teamed up against. I was normally almost bullied in my own household, looked at like I'm different, like I'm weird, like I have a problem. And because of that, that caused more and more trauma, a lot of emotional abuse and stuff like that. Father was a Folsom prison guard. My mother was a hairstylist. And like I said, good people. But my dad, he grew up in a very troubled childhood as well. Probably worse than what I went through. And because of that, he didn't know how to parent. He didn't know how to father. And so I know he did the best he could. And, I accept that, I basically blame the good things on him and the bad things. Right. And so that's cool to get to that point, by the way, when you can actually, like, instead of blaming somebody for all the bad things, also blaming them for the good, because out of bad always comes good when you can change your perspective on it. So going through, childhood, I'd say about high school, we can actually cut back. At 8 years old, I started doing drugs. I found my mom's prescription drugs, and I tried some painkillers, and I loved it. And it was this moment in my life where I felt okay, where I felt safe, where I felt like I was almost normal, like I wasn't struggling anymore. And so I chased that my whole life, right? I did anything I could at that moment, from that moment on, to stay high, to get high, and to kill that pain that I was dealing with. And to the point I was drinking like 1 to 2 bottles of Robitussin a night. I was getting into allergy medication. I was doing everything I could. And this is something that a lot of people, I've never really heard, but drugs actually saved my life, because it did numb the pain. It did what it was intended for me to do. And because of that, I survived my childhood years. And then I started getting into the hard stuff come high school. So 17 years old, I got into cocaine. Actually 16 years old, I got into cocaine. And the way I am is I'm a all in or not type of guy, right?
Yeah.
I think a lot of people that have dealt with trauma are like that. A lot of people with mental illnesses are like that. And I took the cocaine to the next level. I started selling it, dealing it. I started, I was the neighborhood guy. I was getting people hooked on it. And then 17 years old, my dad basically found it and kicked me to the curb. He's a cop. I was never enabled for my behavior, I can tell you that. And actually, I'm very thankful for that, because I wasn't enabled. I was put in situations where I had to change. Except this time, I was 17, I was homeless, and I was an addict. And the first night I was out on the streets, I was introduced to methamphetamines. And again, I took it to the next level. I got to this point it was about a year of using methamphetamines in a very hard way, more than most people ever should, and taking that to such an extreme level, like where I obtained drug-induced psychosis, signs of schizophrenia, definitely bipolar right now, like still, and it ruined a lot of parts of my brain. I'm very lucky. I could say I'm definitely a miracle to be alive and to be sober right now. I want to pause. Stay right where you are, because I want to come right back to it. But I want to say something about how amazing the human body is, that it could endure this amount of abuse, right, over a decade at this point, from when you were 7, 8 years old up until 17, 18, and you're just putting all this stuff in it just to numb and just to get over this stuff, to deal with this stuff, to make it go away, and your body's handling it. Like, and I get it. Like, some people aren't that lucky, right? Some people OD accidentally. Some people OD on purpose. But you're
you're abusing your body, and yet your body's like, still like able to get through it. It's a testament to our design and to the human body, and to how amazing it is, and how, if you do all the right things, how quickly it can, start, to benefit and to get better and get healed. But so keep going. So you're 17, 18 years old. You are homeless. You are an addicted drug user with really seemingly no future at this point, right? I mean, you're jobless, homeless, just living for the next.
I was
fix.
working at Round Table, actually. I held a job up until I got fired. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I made pizzas, and I made just enough to get my fix. I was also selling methamphetamines to some of the most, some of the biggest drug, California prison gangs in town. The Aryan Brotherhood. I was never a part of their gang, but I was selling for them. I was selling to them, and a part of that, Hell's Angels and stuff like that. And I was surrounding myself with extremely evil and dark people that I honestly, like, you see stuff on movies, it gets worse than that, right? I was put in situations that I would have never, ever would have been in if I didn't do drugs. But these people, like, they accepted me. They wanted me because, and nobody else did, so I took that. Right?
Right. Sadly, this was like your family.
Absolutely. Even though there was no love, even though there was no real connection besides the drug itself, there was a place I could crash. There's a place, a person I can talk to, and someone I can do drugs with, right? Some of the most, I could tell you stories about this stuff all day long. It's crazy, the stuff that I've witnessed and saw and been a part of. There's points in that journey, in that methamphetamine part of my life, where I was held at gunpoint. I was knifed to my throat, threatening to be killed. I've overdosed 8 times in my life. I've had 3 grand mal seizures from overdoing it. I was doing so much methamphetamine at one time that these 20-year-old tweakers were telling me, like, bro, you got to slow down. Like, you're going to die. Like, that's too much. And I didn't care. I wanted to die. It got to such a bad point to where I was seeing demons. And if I wasn't hallucinating with that psychosis and the signs of schizophrenia, I wasn't high enough. Like, that's how deep I was. And I was that guy on the side of the road yelling at cars. If you can see my face, you can see all the scars from picking on my face. That bad. It was that deep. And actually, this point, everybody I grew up with and knew had no idea where I was, what I was doing. Actually, when I came back into society, they're like, hey, man, how you doing? It's like, oh, you have no idea, right? So I separated myself from everybody and put myself in this horrible situation. Got to a point where I was in my car with actually a bunch of minor 16 and 17-year-olds in the town of Folsom, California, Sacramento area, and we're sitting on the side of the road in my Honda. I did have a car. I did have a Honda Accord. I basically had a car and a pizza job and drugs. That was my life. I lived in my car. You know what I mean? And I had these minors in my car, and I'm taking, rolling out the lines and showing off my drugs. And 3 cops pulled behind me with their lights on. And my heart dropped, bro. Just dropped. And I just looked at them and I was like, don't say a word. Just let me talk, right? And basically they just chattered. They talked. They said, they threw me under the bus. It is what it is, right? And I had like an ounce of weed on me, a couple grams of hash. I had about an 8 ball of cocaine and an 8 ball of methamphetamines, and like a meth pipe on me and a weed pipe. And they took me to jail. I had just turned 18 years old. I was about 125 pounds at this time. Sucked up. I wasn't eating for 3 weeks at a time. I wasn't drinking water. I wasn't sleeping for 3 weeks at a time. I'd stay up that long, and all I would consume was methamphetamine until I would literally pass out somewhere, and I don't even remember falling asleep. Like, I'd just go as hard as I could. I'd wake up in places I had no idea where I was. I woke up in the middle of the street in my car once, and with a cop tapping on my window. He's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, I don't know." He's like, "Get home." Just crazy stuff, like skipping through time. And here I am, 18 years old. I'm in Sac County jail, and I'm scared, bro. I'm scared. I had no more access to drugs, so I was now detoxing. I spent 14 days in Sac County in a cell by myself, detoxing, and that was the first moment in my life since I was 8 years old that I was sober. And I started to see that it was okay. It's kind of a trip, right? It took that for me to see that, wow, it's not that bad being sober, right? I didn't quit completely. I still failed a little bit. I got out. I went through trial. I actually won my trial. My case got dismissed in the eyes of the law. Felony was dropped. I was looking at 10 years, and I got off scot-free. Wow. Man, just a side note, like, my life itself is a miracle. At 2 years old, I was diagnosed with cancer. I had radiation treatment. The doctor said I have no chance to live, 0 chance to live. And they told my parents I got a couple months. And one day I woke up. They woke up and the cancer was gone. Completely gone. Like I said, eight ODs, 3 seizures, knives, guns to my head. There's a reason why I'm here, right? And that's why I fight so hard now. We could fast forward through. I basically got off of the hard stuff eventually. I moved up to Truckee, was homeless up there for about 4 months. I lived on the river in the summer under a tarp, and I cleaned up. I was still smoking weed, and then I met my wife, and we ended up getting married. I was a drinker at that time. I switched over to drinking, just one addiction to the next. And then I basically spent 4 years of my life drinking every single day up into a fifth a night of alcohol. Still holding a job, holding a marriage, and, just still hiding from that pain. And it just got to.
How much of your previous life did you let on to your wife at this point? Was she did she really know Eric Rogers, or did she just know the version you were willing to show her?
That's a good question. I was pretty, actually, no, my stories kind of came out through the years. I still tell stories and she's like, I didn't know that. It's like, and she's like, how many stories do you have? I'm like, oh, I have hundreds. Like, there's stuff I haven't even remembered yet. Right. So I gave her the best package at first, like every man usually does. Right. Like I was clean at the time. I was smoking weed. I was kind of a stoner at the time. And she met me and she loved me. Like I was homeless. I lived in a little tarp like on the river, and she just loved it for some reason. It's actually why I love her so much, is because she accepted me like at my worst. And it's just amazing. She's actually, the first time I ever felt loved was from my wife. I never felt loved before. I never knew what that was. And she got my heart, and man, we got married pretty quick. We ended up, I got her pregnant after 3 years of marriage. And she was drinking with me, but she quit when she got pregnant. She cleaned her life up, but I was still going. I was still drinking every day. And it got to a point, my son is 1 year old, and I've caused so much damage to that family by drinking every day, by causing arguments, by just being a victim, and just not giving what I should be giving, not bringing what I should be bringing to the table as far as love, as far as protection, as far as acceptance. And it got to a point where my wife, she was just like, you're not fit to be my husband, you're not fit to be a father. And they packed their stuff and they left. And this was the transition part of my life right here. This is the most important part. After all of that's happened in my past, I was here, and again, I lost everything, and I was alone, not fit for the world, right? And everything going through my head is like, man, like life sucks. Like I'm not, I'm not meant to be here, like, that whole victimhood mindset. And about 4 months, I upped my alcohol. I got back into hard drugs, and I just took it to the next level. And 4 months later, I was sitting on my bed, and I decided I'm going to kill myself. And that's when I took my pistol and I put it in my mouth. And, I was crying, I was sobbing, I was screaming. I was going to pull the trigger, finger on the trigger. And then something just clicked. And that was the beginning of it all. What happened was I had this vision of my wife being loved from another man, my son calling somebody else dad, and it was enough pain for me to just like pull that gun out of my mouth, right? And then I started, I don't know, this is definitely a work of God. It absolutely is. But he let me see that it was my fault that I was there with the gun in my mouth, that it was my fault. It was the first time I ever took responsibility for anything, was that moment. I realized that my past action had led me to this point in my life. And that empowered me to see that my actions from now moving forward can also change the outcome of my life. I could be that dad. I could be that husband. And from that moment on, I decided I'm gonna do this. I gave myself 1 year. I was like, I'm gonna try as hard as I can to stay sober and to change my life. And if my life's not worth living in a year, I'm gonna kill myself. And I gave myself that timeline, and I worked extremely hard because I wanted it. I wanted to know what it felt, because I look around and I see people just killing it and being loved and just like happy, and I never had that. And I never thought I was worthy of it. And I just wanted that so bad. And so I gave it a try. And I took my life in the opposite direction completely. I started to practice extreme discipline. Not just, I'm going to quit drinking, I'm going to work out. No, I'm going to be like Navy SEAL status, the most disciplined person on this world, on this earth. That's what I'm going to do. Because...
Well, you took all of that same effort and passion and energy that you were putting into killing yourself into making your life
worth living,
into a purpose, into worth living. See, isn't it funny how a complete 180.
This is a great learning lesson for your audience probably. But one thing I realized at that moment was I was extremely driven. That's my superpower. I'm extremely driven. And wherever I point my compass, I get what I want. If my compass, and a lot of people are like this, they might not even know it, but if you point your compass and your focus is to run from pain, or to, destroy your life, or to run away from sadness, or to chase pleasure, or chase comfort, you're going to destroy your life pretty quick. If you can take that compass needle and point it at building a better life, creating a life, becoming disciplined, becoming a better person, you're going to use that focal point as a path and just build the best thing ever. And that's what I did. And I realized that what my focal point is where I was headed, right? And that drive, I just put, like you said, that energy, I just put on the correct path. And within a year, man, I was back with my wife and kid. I completely sober, and man, just lived like I had no idea I was capable of that. And I started to see what I was capable of. I really took a lot of time, and I studied people. And because I didn't know what normal was, I had no idea. So I got into communities with a bunch of guys, and I asked questions like, how do you deal with this? How do you cope with this? How do you react to this? Because a lot of my struggles was emotional. I had no emotional control. I reacted to everything. And so that was my main focus. I realized very quickly that I didn't want to be normal. I didn't want to be normal at all. So I just took my intensity, and I took what I've learned from them of being a good person and trying to be your best, and I created who I am today. And I've just been on the path ever since, getting better every single day. And life's not easier. That's a fact. Life was easier when I was high. I can admit that. Like, as far as challenges go, I can't run from the pain anymore. I will not allow myself to. I will sit there.
Right.
I'll stay down when I get pushed down and figure out why I got pushed down, and it hurts. But I'm strong enough to do it now. And who I am coming out of that struggle is 110% better than who I was coming out of any struggle in the past. So, like, my message is feel the pain. Let it change you. It's there for a reason. Like, there's something good coming from this. Whatever your struggle is right now, you in the audience, like, whatever you're going through right now, there's something good coming out of this. But you got to stop running from the pain. You got to stop allowing yourself to be comfortable. You got to throw away the blankie, right? You got to throw away the baba, and you got to man up, stand up, and you got to get to work. Feel it. Why are you feeling this way? Whose fault is it, first of all? Right?
Right.
Yeah. It's yours every time.
And, for sure. And in that pain, that's when typically we find our best selves. That's where we get that most rewarded feeling of growth and accomplishment is through the struggles of life. You know, if everything was easy, we wouldn't appreciate easy. Right. You know, it's like if everything always went our way, we wouldn't appreciate it when it finally does go our way. You know, so it's kind of like the failures and the mistakes and the trials of life are what make life also so magical. Absolutely. And so amazing. Because when things do line up,
it also shapes us. It makes us. It forms us exactly who we are right now. It's our struggles.
Right. Exactly right. Yeah. There's a great song. I think it's by Mercy Me, and he says something about, you pray for your life to go a certain way, right, and to be easier, right, to be just all these things. But if you didn't go through all the pain and the struggles of your life, you wouldn't be the person that you are today. Right. So it's like I wouldn't even know myself if I didn't go through all these, the death of people I was close to. And I can use that pain to help others. Right. Because I can be in those emotions with them and really maybe help them on a completely different level. Absolutely. So obviously at this point, everybody's like, wow, that's unbelievable. Now everyone's very curious, like, okay, so how many years now? Like, so after you commit back to being sober, to your wife and to your young boy, how many years have gone by since that point? So, I mean, how many years back was that, and what have those past several years looked like?
My son is 4 years old now. And when they left me, my son was 1. So he'll be May in May he'll be 5. So about 3.5 years it's been. And I love fast-paced growth and it's all about commitment. If you can actually commit 100%, your life will change so drastically, so fast. Everyone wants a quick fix, right? It's all dependent on your commitment level, right? And so, I mean, so much has happened since then, and a lot of my accomplishments now it's not money, it's not things, it's not toys, it's not a house. Obviously it is my family, I got them back, but it's I found who I truly am. I'm very self-aware of who I am. I know what I'm capable of, right? And I think that's something that a lot of people don't have a grasp on. They don't really know what they're capable of because they haven't challenged themselves enough. And the only way you're going to challenge yourself enough is by commitment. And the only way you're going to commit is by sacrifice. You have to sacrifice the comfort. You have to sacrifice the pleasure. And I mean 100%. Say never again. You will see what you're made of, and you will be able to have so much control of your path in your life. Now, I still struggle, right? Absolutely, I still struggle. Actually, I'm going through an extremely hard time right now. None of this none of this was really me, guys. I want you to know that this was an act of God. Like, if I didn't have faith, I don't think I'd be who I am today. Like, all the glory goes to him. Like, he obviously had a reason to keep me alive. He obviously had a reason to bring me this far and push me through that much pain. You have to have faith. So if you're struggling right now, I guess that's the biggest advice I can have. Like, find God over finding yourself. Like, it's extremely helpful. I think I forgot the question you asked me. Sorry.
No, it was really just like what of these last few years since this, since that day, since that moment when you decided, like, I'm all in now, like, I'm committed to this. What has that life looked like, for you and your wife and your young child? And obviously, I think we're getting a feel for it. Is like, you are now channeling, like you already said, all of that energy and all of that enthusiasm and passion that you had for all the bad things in life, and using it for good, and now also using it to benefit and help other people and coach them. What inspired? So you have this revelation. You're finding yourself. You're finding this new version of you that you really like, and what gets you to the point where you're like, I want to take my story and I want to start to help other people on their journey? Like, what was the moment that you realized that was something, your next step?
Okay, this is a trip because it wasn't a choice I made. Like, God put me here. Like, I was just placed here to where I was given a platform and a voice. I didn't even know I had those things. I didn't even know I had a voice. I didn't really know my story even would help anybody. I was given the power. I was empowered to be vulnerable and just let it out and be safe, feel safe with telling my story. And what it was is working a regular job. I was an electrician for 6 years, and I helped 2 guys on the side lose weight. They did extremely well. And then all of a sudden, boom, COVID hit. I lost my career. I lost my ability to provide for my family. And my whole goal now is, like, I have to give my family what they need because I hurt them so bad. Like, I'm constantly, like, they're my main focus. And so I was struggling to find a way to do that. And it came to me, and I was like, I have a skill to be a coach. I'm going to try it. And I put it out there, and I started to build it and market it. And within 6 months, man, I had built a 6-figure business. And through building the business, you want to find yourself. You want to know who you truly are and what you're capable of. Start a business, right? It's crazy. Your success will never exceed your personal development. Like, it won't. And so that's the number one thing I've been working on is, like, how do I get better as a person so I can make more money and spread my message and this and that, right? And so I started to speak. Man, I don't know what the day was, but I had this motivation to tell my story because I was finally doing good and showing people the contrast. And I almost used it as marketing at first, like to get people to want to buy my product, my program for fitness. And fitness was a huge stepping stone for me to get to this place. And I started to tell my story, and then it started inspiring people like crazy. And I got better at it, and I just gotten more followers, and I started just making like a community and a lifestyle out of it, and it's just grown. It's crazy. Like, I was kind of just placed here, if that makes sense.
No, it does make sense. And I think those are the people that can do the most good in this world, are the people that were, dealing with kind of the most or the worst of it, who had the toughest life. And if they're able to, endure it and get through it, right, not be beaten by it, they're able to come out of it and then share that message in a very powerful way, and people want to hear it. People I've heard speak from the stage, the most inspiring people certainly have been people who were where you were, or who had a similar story, right? Or, and everyone's got a story. I was just talking to a guy the other day. I coached baseball for my son and for,
Right.
in our community, and I absolutely love it. I love volunteering my time and my energy and sometimes I'm a little too passionate and a little too enthusiastic with 10-year-old boys, but we have so much fun. And I was talking to this one guy who just lost his father, and he went suddenly. It was an unexpected thing. And then I started to kind of share with him some of the loss that I've had over, the last several years. And he was like, wow. He's like, that's crazy. That's awful. He's like, you just don't know, you just don't know when you're talking to somebody what they're going through. And I'm like, You're right. There's a lot of people like this. There's a lot of people that have stories that they aren't willing to open up and help others with, right? But that's what you're doing. That's the choice that you made, is you're using that pain and channeling it and using it for good. And it's commendable that you're putting yourself out there. And like you said, you're just recently opening up about things that you weren't even talking about not that long ago, that you wouldn't even have shared with your own wife. But in doing that, you're not only helping others, you yourself are going to be able to allow yourself some needed healing, obviously. Like the more you're able to open up about it and talk about it and like you're just going to be able to get past
Absolutely.
it, I think.
No, it's definitely, not fun telling my story, right? It's not fun, but to know the power behind it and how many lives it's changed so far, man, like my whole goal is if I can save or change one person's life out of all the pain that one person, myself, went through, then I win. I'm winning, dude.
Right.
It was all worth it.
Right.
Right. So the purpose of pain is growth, whether it's for yourself or someone else. That's why we go through it.
Yeah. Agreed. And I've said that same message in past podcasts. If this conversation helps just one person listening, helps them overcome something or make a different choice in their life, or just improve their life on some level, like we did it. We won. We accomplished our mission. And if it's more than one, then fantastic. It's great. But I mean, that's it. It's the ripple effect, right? And so the more you have these conversations with podcasters like us on Strong by Design or on other shows, the better, everybody wins, because that's just your message getting out there to more and more people who need to hear it. And so it's fantastic. So you had said something before we hit record, that a lot of the people that you're helping right now, that you're coaching, are other entrepreneurial type people, like these kind of dedicated, hardworking, high achieving, success driven people. And these are a lot of the people that you're getting, but you're also still, you're open to kind of coaching anybody. But isn't it funny that it's the people that seem like they really got their stuff together are the ones that are really reaching out, and you're working with
Jordan
the most.
Peterson said something that really hit me once. He said, if they're not listening, stop talking to them. I spent years talking to people that weren't listening. People that they tuned in to be motivated, but they'd never take action. Right. And you probably have a lot of listeners like that. Like, get off the podcast, get off YouTube and go get to work. Like, it doesn't solve anything just to be motivated. You have to put in the work. And so I spoke to people for a long time that would join and give up. They'd join, they'd quit. Even if I made it like easier on them, or I was there every day to hold them accountable, which is something that I do, they just couldn't move forward. And one thing I realized in my life, if I look back, I couldn't listen to nobody when I was going through that. I didn't listen to nobody. Right. First, I know I had some authority issues, like trust issues with authority because of what I went through, but you couldn't tell me nothing. Some people, actually most people, do have to hit some sort of rock bottom to get the will to change their lives, and it's important. Yeah. So I do work with go-getters. I work with that A-type personality type of person, somebody that's willing to do the work, somebody that knows how important mentality and mindset is, because there's a large group of people out there that they hear mindset and they're like that doesn't matter. I just need a six-pack. You know what I mean? Like, I don't do that.
Right.
I don't do that. We fix the mind, we fix the body, and we fix the soul. And that's why my clients do so well. We're breaking through issues they had as a kid. We're breaking through limitations that they never even saw, but I'm there to show them. That's why their level of commitment increases, their level of discipline increases. Before, they just couldn't commit. There was always something in the way. And so that's what I'm there for, to find patterns and break through them. And then I also, we do time management, stuff like that. We just take full control of everything we can control is the goal.
Right. Yeah. No, it's great. It's building the house on a solid foundation instead of on sand, because I think a lot of people, they have a lot of these unresolved issues and pain in their life, and yet they're still trying to stack all these other things on top of it, and it doesn't seem to work really, really well for them. Something just is off, doesn't feel quite right. It's because they haven't dug down deep enough and gotten to the root. It's kind of like the weed. If you just keep cutting the weed, it's going to grow back. You gotta pull the roots out, and that's what you're still doing for yourself, which is, again, commendable. But in doing that, you're only making yourself that much better at being able to help others. The more willing you are to dive deeper into your past and to overcome your pains. So that's fantastic. So for our listeners who I know you're going to inspire some followership here, please let some of the people listening know where they can find you, the best platforms to see more of you, to read more about your story, and if they're interested in reaching out, how they can get a hold of you.
So I'm mostly on Instagram. So _Eric Rogers. And I'm sure you'll put it in the link below or something. So check that out, because people spell my name wrong. So the real _Eric Rogers, and I love to hear your feedback, and I talk to my followers, and so hit me up in a DM and let's talk. That's simple as that. I'm not the kind of guy to ignore anybody. That's why I'm doing this. So, and then if you want to look at more of the program and stuff like that, rogersfitnessacademy.com is a place to go.
Yes. Yeah. You have a nice website. rogersfitnessacademy.com. He's got a quick video at the top, and then a lot of transformation stories that people can read and listen to other people who've had some experiences with Eric, which is great. And you can see some pictures, obviously, but if they start following you on Instagram, I'm sure there's plenty of good stuff there. But it's such a great, easy way to make quick contact with people. And like Eric says, it all comes down to action, taking action. You can know stuff, but until you apply it, the application is the important part. I can't tell you how many people, I've talked to some high level people before who are willing to actually even give out their phone number, their personal phone number in a podcast, right? That's distributed to thousands of people. Guess how many times that phone rings? Very, very rarely. And you would think, like, oh my gosh, like, I'm going to get overwhelmed with hundreds of calls. Right. Nope, because people just won't pull the trigger. Yeah. So I highly encourage anybody who is maybe going through some challenges and really is looking for someone to help them kind of, navigate this challenging time of their life, this difficult time of their life. Reach out to Eric, start a conversation, and maybe this could be the one thing that gets you on the right path. So, Eric, it's been great getting to know you, know your story. I'm excited to release this episode and the feedback that we'll get here on Strong by Design, because I know it's really going to help.
Thank you for having me, brother. It's been awesome, to say the least. Yeah.
It has been. It's been terrific. I really enjoyed it. I'll go back and listen to it once it releases too, because I'm sure there's some stuff there that I need to hear for a second time. Listeners, now's the time. Please hit that 5 stars, leave a review. Just a quick couple words. Just takes a few seconds. We greatly appreciate it because it really helps the podcast. And share this conversation with somebody who needs to hear it, because I know all of us have someone in our lives who are struggling or in some difficult moments and could use some encouraging words to help move the needle in the right direction, as Eric was saying.
Can I say something, Chris?
So, of course.
Just to leave you guys off with something. I know there's probably been a lot of loss in the last couple of years for a lot of people. This world, it just seems like it's falling apart. For a lot of people, it has fallen apart. I really want you to tap into your identity in what really matters. The money, the success, the cars, the house. Some people have lost those things. They're not actually important. Because I've lost everything 3 times. And I know, I'm not just saying this. I know, like, your happiness comes from within you. Work on the things that matter, your internal state, your character. It's more important than you know. If you can be grateful for your breath alone, you can do anything. You're unstoppable. And so, if you're not grateful when you have everything, you're not going to be grateful when you have nothing. So right now in this moment you're in, to practice that and to be thankful for just your breath, for the necessities in life. And if you've lost those things, or you're looking around and you're seeing that other people have things you want or you can't have, let it go. Let it go and just focus on today, because that day by day, step by step process is exactly how I got to this point. And I still have to think like this because I endured a lot of loss recently as well because of everything that's going on. And none of this stuff matters. If you wake up happy, you're successful. Period.
Right. That's right, man. Amen. Thank you for that. I appreciate that. The breath in our lungs is something to be grateful for alone. And we take a lot for granted in this life. So we got to focus on our blessings. I try to constantly remind myself how very blessed I am for my life, for the people in it, for the things I get to do, for this podcast, for the people I work with, right? Unbelievable. My neighbors, my community, so many blessings all around us. And all we have to do is focus on that sometimes. Absolutely. And kind of bring ourselves back into what matters most, as you said. So I appreciate that.
Of course.
That last message is fantastic. God bless all of you listeners. Thank you so much. Next week, as always, another episode here on the Strong by Design podcast show. Coach Chris Wilson talking with you today. Have an amazing rest of the week. Talk with you soon.
Thank you so much for listening to the Strong by Design podcast. If you found value in today's episode, please subscribe so that more people can find out about our show. Plus, you don't want to miss any future episodes with the amazing guests and topics we have lined up for you.